Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. We start today's video with a property manager who thought she could bully her tenant. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Property manager didn't take bed bugs seriously, but I sure did. I moved into a new apartment, and from the day I moved in, the property manager, I'll call her Megan, was always slightly rude. Nothing huge, but for example, the day I came to sign the lease and pay my deposit, she waited until I was at the office to say I could only pay the deposit with a money order and was annoyed I didn't bring it with me despite never being informed. Like I said, nothing huge, just sort of inconsiderate. Well, I was getting bites on my legs for a couple months, but assumed it was happening when I was going on walks during the day. I was wrong. My partner woke up face-to-face with a bed bug a few months into the lease. I called the leasing office to tell them the unit had bed bugs, and Megan's immediate response was to tell me how much I would have to pay to get rid of them. I told her I hadn't brought in the bed bugs, so I was confused about why I had to pay for their removal. She told me I had definitely brought them in because no one else had reported bed bugs, to which I responded, well, if I'd known you were going to charge me hundreds of dollars, I wouldn't have told you either. I would have gotten rid of them myself. At this point, there had been no bed bug inspection or anything, so she had no evidence to say whether they were coming in from a neighboring apartment or if they were my bed bugs. I know bed bugs are easy to pick up in public places, including U-Hauls, so it's totally possible they could have come in with me. Definitely not denying that. I asked Megan if she was going to talk to the people in the surrounding units and have those apartments inspected for bed bugs too. She said no, because no one else had complained about bed bugs. That seemed weird to me because I know someone who worked in a hotel, and if a room got bed bugs, they would fumigate all the rooms in that area. I told Megan I'd be happy to inform my neighbors myself that they should be on the lookout, and she asked me not to. Here's where she really pissed me off. I'm trans and my legal name is my dead name, which I told her the day I moved in and saw her make a note of my chosen name in my file. She texted me and referred to me by my dead name, again telling me the bed bugs were mine and I shouldn't take any action with the neighbors. I corrected her on my name and all she said was, sorry, that's what's in my file. She'd called me the right name before, so it really felt like she did it on purpose, to be cruel. The exterminator came and did treatments over the course of weeks, but I ended up having to buy a clothing steamer to murder the bed bugs myself because the exterminator's methods didn't get rid of them. While I was getting home from work one day and saw Megan around the property, obviously giving some prospective residents a tour, I immediately started scheming in my head, thinking about things I could have said, but figured I'd missed my chance. I was wrong. I got dressed for the gym and walked down to the parking lot, and lo and behold, she was right at the base of my staircase about to show the prospective renters an apartment in my building. I got so effing excited. I walked past them with the biggest smile on my face and said in the loudest, cheeriest voice I could, "Thank you so much for your help with the bedbug situation. I appreciate it so much." Her jaw dropped. It was incredible. She texted me about 15 minutes later, pissed. She said something like, "If you have a problem with me, you can talk to me about it in private." I responded, "Oh, oops, I didn't realize bed bugs were such a big problem. I just wanted to say thank you." Those people did not end up renting from her. Oops. Edit. This happened in 2022 and I've moved out since then, so Megan is no longer my concern. I love this story. Also, you really should have told your neighbors, if nothing else, then for purely selfish reasons. Only if every unit's fumigated can you actually get rid of them. And our second story. My neighbor refused to share the curb, so I let him struggle with parallel parking hell. When I first moved into that neighborhood, the parking situation seemed simple enough. Each house had a driveway that could fit one car. If you had two cars, one of them had to go on the street. Between my driveway and the next door neighbor's driveway, there were 3 street parking spots. Seemed fair and manageable until the neighbor dynamics kicked in. My next door neighbor drove a company car and for some reason absolutely refused to park it on the street. Maybe he was paranoid about scratches or maybe it was just an ego thing, but whatever the reason, that car always sat in the driveway. His wife was a stay-at-home mom and her car was permanently parked on the street directly in front of their house. She rarely moved it. which basically eliminates one of the 3 spots. That left only 2 usable spots for everyone else. My girlfriend didn't like leaving her car on the street all day while she was at work, so she always got the driveway. Fair enough. The problem was my big work van, a bulky vehicle that wasn't exactly easy to maneuver in tight spots. After a long, exhausting day, the last thing I wanted to do was spend 10 minutes parallel parking. But that's exactly what started happening. One of my other neighbors got home from work earlier than me and always parked in the space right next to our driveway. By doing that, he left me only the center space, which meant I had to parallel park the van every single time. It became my nightly ritual. Tired, cranky, and wrestling my oversized work truck into a tight spot I hated. Finally, I decided to try diplomacy. I went over to his place and asked him nicely if we could come to an agreement. Whoever got home first would take the center spot so the next person wouldn't be forced to parallel park. It seemed fair and simple, but instead of being reasonable, he flat out refused. No discussion, no compromise, just a stubborn no. And he kept right on parking in this space by my driveway. That's when I decided to change tactics. The next day, I had my girlfriend park her car on the street in front of our house instead of using the driveway. That left the dreaded middle spot as the only available option for him. Sure enough, when he got home, he had no choice but to parallel park his car. And oh, did that piss him off. He retaliated by calling parking enforcement. Our city has a 72-hour rule for street parking. You can't leave a car unmoved for more than 3 days. Normally, the rule isn't enforced unless someone complains. Well, guess who complained? Parking enforcement came out and slapped "move this car or else" warnings, not only on my girlfriend's car, but also on my next-door neighbor's wife's car, which hadn't budged in weeks. I immediately went over and apologized to the next-door neighbor, explaining what was going on and how this all started. He was annoyed but understood. From then on, every 3 days, my girlfriend and I juggled our cars, moving them just enough to avoid violations. It was a hassle, but worth it. After a few weeks of this back and forth, my stubborn neighbor finally caved. He came over, frustrated and tired of parallel parking, and agreed to my original proposal. First one home takes the middle spot. Problem solved. Sometimes you gotta let people taste their own medicine before they realize cooperation is easier than conflict. And our next story. Why yelling at me won't make your daughter's helmet fit. I work at a large department store, DS, in one of the rented-in stores, and therefore don't actually work for the DS, but for a secondary firm. Because of this, I only know what's on our shelves and only have a vague idea of what's on which floor, etc., and the rest of the DS. Some might say that's bad service, but I don't actually shop in the DS myself. It's expensive. And I don't have the time to go outside my own shop while I'm at work. My shop's also very clearly lined with different tiling and colors everywhere. I was alone at work. My colleague was late for her shift and it was busy. I had maybe 7 people in line, and for some reason, all of them wanted their items wrapped. I was pretty stressed, but luckily all the customers seemed patient and were all very nice and smiling. All of a sudden, a wild soccer mom appeared. She was the typical, "I want to see your manager" type, and it even forced her way to the register past 7 people in line. She approached me with an angry, annoyed attitude. She slammed a bicycle helmet in my face and asked how to open the strap so her daughter could try it on. Now, I work in a toy shop and didn't have any bicycle equipment at all. I'd never seen the helmet before or even that type of lock, so I looked up while still wrapping the paying customer's gift and politely told her that I'd never seen that helmet before because it's not one of ours. But if she, I momentarily stopped wrapping to point, were to approach the girl at the register over there, maybe 20 feet away, they should be able to help her. Of course, she started saying things like, "This is yours because it's right there," a couple of shelves away from my store. "You're a terrible employee," and "This is the worst service I've ever gotten." Between her ranting, I kept trying to explain to her that it's not in my department, but if she would just go to the other register, they would be happy to help her. I just want to mention that if I hadn't been busy, I would have tried to open the lock or found someone from the other department to help, but I was busy helping other customers, so I couldn't. At some point, she just didn't want to yell anymore and left. The other customers in line were very nice and gave me sympathy looks, saying things like, "Wow," and such. I just kept rapping and joked with the other customers, but it wasn't over. After maybe 5 minutes, she approached me again, once again forcing her way past other customers, this time fuming. She yelled at me that she found out how to open the helmet without any of my help and then just stormed off. That was the last I ever saw of her. This is, to date, one of the oddest customers I've ever had. I would have said, I'm helping all these people, but if you don't want to wait in line, the person over there can help, as well as explaining that it wasn't my product and I didn't know how to open it. I mean, she does need to wait her turn after all. It's just common sense, politeness. Not that those type of people have either. They're the most important person, and everyone in the store should drop whatever they're doing to help them with whatever they need help with right away. And our last story. I got fired for attitude. He lost 2 businesses and $250K. I'm a 34-year-old woman, and I've always been more of a tomboy. At 25, I decided I was tired of the job I was in and wanted to follow my father's footsteps into auto repair, specifically painting. To start training, though, I needed an apprenticeship in a shop. I called around, company after company laughed at me, no place for a woman here. Some even hung up mid-sentence. I was discouraged, but I finally found one owner who said, I'll take a chance on you. I was thrilled. He promised me training, practice time with the lead painter, and even a full-time job after graduation. The first 2 weeks were great. I was excited, eager, and willing to work, but then reality hit. Instead of learning painting techniques, I was handed a pneumatic sander and shoved onto a massive city contract to restore underground containers. My job, sand for 8 hours straight, seal the edges, prep them for paint. That was it. Every single day. The vibrations wrecked my hands. By law in my country, you can't sand for more than 4 hours with that machine. It causes permanent damage. I brought it up and was brushed off. Weeks passed, months, still no promised training. Instead, I was told to put rebar on windows, fix sliding doors, patch crumbling walls, stuff a contractor should do, nothing tied to painting. After 6 months of this, the boss called me in. Boss, I'm done with your attitude. I made a mistake hiring you. Just like that, I was fired. No write-ups, no warnings, nothing. I walked home crying, heartbroken. I'd worked hard, never complained, stayed late when asked, and still it wasn't enough. The final paycheck date came, nothing hit my account. I gave it a week, then called. Boss, stop complaining, it'll be transferred soon. 2 weeks later, still nothing. I called again. Boss shouting, quit bothering me, you'll get it when you get it. That was the last straw. I called a lawyer. Turns out my boss had broken a string of laws. First, in my country, you can't just fire someone on a whim. You need documented cause, written warnings, evidence of misconduct, a process. He had none of that, which meant I was entitled to 6 more months of salary. Second, final paychecks must be delivered within a week. If not, the employer owes the employee €100 per day of delay. By then, we were looking at thousands in additional compensation. My lawyer drafted a letter, no response. Sent another, silence. Finally, after a month, a partial paycheck arrived, still missing compensation. So we filed in small claims court. He didn't even show. He sent a written statement through his lawyer claiming I was a terrible employee, but I had glowing performance reports from 1 and 4 months in, both signed by him. The judge didn't hesitate. 6 months of salary, €12,000. 4 months of late payment penalties, another €12,000. Legal fees, €3,000. Paid in full within the week. But the fun didn't stop there. The court also fined him for unlawful termination. That triggered an investigation by the Labor Bureau. Inspectors came to his shop, and what they found was a disaster. The foundation was cracked, walls were crumbling, and the place was unsafe to work in. He was given a month to fix it or shut down. While digging, they uncovered even more shady bookkeeping and tax evasion. The tax authority got involved. Between unpaid taxes and penalties, he owed around €250,000. He couldn't pay. Within months, his employees went unpaid, his reputation was in tatters, and both his businesses folded. The building where I had slaved away was condemned and demolished. 7 years later, the lot's still empty. Sometimes when life drags me down, I'll drive past that plot of weeds and rubble. I remember the numb hands, the tears, the fear of being seen as a failure, and then I remember the look on the judge's face when she awarded me every cent I was owed. He thought he could use me, toss me aside, and never pay what he owed. Instead, he lost his businesses, his money, and his reputation, all because he underestimated the girl who didn't belong in his shop. He thought you were powerless because you were young, female, and in a male-dominated field. Instead, you became the person who burned his empire to the ground. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.